Hi, so would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Sure. I'm Raphael Mazet. I'm the CEO of Alice. And Alice is a decentralized social impact network that's built on Ethereum. Basically, what we're trying to do is make sure that there is transparency and accountability in the way that people produce social impact and work on environmental projects, for example.
Cool.
Yeah.
What is your best description of distributed governance?
That's a really interesting thing. A non-centralized governance. No, I think decentralized governance or distributed governance is one that is inclusive and participatory, and where there isn't necessarily a competition to seize power that's locked in for a certain amount of time, and that opens up to different views and perspectives, and is actively trying to promote in an inclusive way the voice of everybody. It's probably the way I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this important?
Well, I think it's really important because the way that we do things at the moment, generally speaking, when you look at how society as a whole is organized, especially in the Western world, we have these governance systems. I'm talking at a political level, right? But it also applies to corporations and most things that we interact with, or most ways in which our daily lives are organized, work, politics, etc. The way that it works is like a very hierarchical structure where some people decide and others have to go with what has been decided, and there's not necessarily a huge space for this kind of inclusive participation. And a lot of in representative democracy, for example, a lot of voices are not heard, or they're not heard enough to actually make a difference. And if you want to tackle, or I think the way that society is going is that we're not necessarily tackling all the big macro challenges that are coming our way, like debt, slavery, environmental catastrophe, distribution of wealth and power, and all of these things that I think are going to define our survival as a species. I don't think are adequately being managed at the moment. So, sorry if I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that's why distributed or decentralized governance is very important, so that we can include all of these people in trying to find a solution towards all this.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think are some of the biggest barriers for us to get there?
Oh, I think the thing about centralized governance is that it's effective, like shit gets done. Mm-hmm. And I think with distributed systems or decentralized systems, it can get very chaotic, and it's not, almost by definition, it's not as easy to get to a point where you can decide everybody agrees on what needs to be done, and probably you end up talking a lot about the way that things should be organized, and rather than actually getting down to the meat of things and doing the things that need to be done. And it's very hard to scale that up beyond a small group of people. And I think the technologies like the ones that we're talking about here, like blockchain technology and all the rest, are enablers that could potentially help us pass that barrier and achieve some really interesting decentralized governance systems.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest risks to distributed systems being used, particularly in the wrong hands?
I think it's co-option is the biggest risk. I mean, it's like there's a natural tendency towards some people taking over. If you look at how things work at the moment, it's like some people decide and other people follow. And if you don't have a resilient distributed governance system, it's very easy for that to perpetuate itself or to start all over again, because there are just naturally people who are more assertive, naturally people who are more confident, who speak the most, and people who are quiet and who don't feel as comfortable participating in this kind of stuff. And they, you want to avoid people getting trodden over, and yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
What about what is the biggest opportunity if we were to successfully implement distributed governance systems?
I think the biggest opportunity or the biggest outcome is personal well-being. I mean, you have a great phrase, the omni-thriving concept. I think that's the biggest opportunity, is that everybody feels empowered, everybody feels like they have a stake and a say in the system, that it adequately represents their values and all of that. I think it's almost like a well-being thing, almost a mental health benefit, where people are happier and more engaged, and then hopefully also we actually solve some of these problems, like impending environmental catastrophe and all of these other issues that we're facing as a society.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think are some of the most interesting movements, technologies, or people that have you the most excited about the future?
Well, I mean, I'm excited about what we're doing at Alice, definitely. But more broadly, I'm really excited about the entire space in which we operate. I mean, everybody's trying to find different ways for the way that we work and achieve things, being more transparent, more accountable, more inclusive. So all of the projects that are working on DAOs, that are working on incentives to get people to participate in a sustainable way. All of these things are super exciting, and there are a couple of companies here or groups here like Colony, like Aragon, DAO Stack, and a bunch of others that I've found out about just today that are trying to do really positive things, and all of that excites me. The big challenge though for us is like how we move from this space, our current space, and make it interface with the rest of default reality and existing systems and power structures.
Mm-hmm.
What's your most optimistic vision for the future?
Look, I'm going to go back to what we're doing. I mean, what we're trying to do at Alice is like literally find the most effective ways to solve social and environmental problems, like provably so. Stop people just sort of reinventing the wheel all the time and coming up with projects that fail. If we like, there are so many issues that should be solved, like homelessness or things like that that we've tried so many angles on and is still not working, and it's about finding out why those systems don't work, and how they could be improved. I think there are disincentives today to actually share information about why stuff fails, particularly in the social space. And so what I'm excited about is this whole transparency and accountability movement, where we can start getting information, systematic information about everything that works and fails. Everybody can learn from everybody else, and then we can get to a point where we scale the most effective solutions, or at least effective solutions, right, without being too ideal. And that's where I'm the most optimistic. If we can get to that point, even if we can move towards that direction without fully achieving it, then I think the world will be a much, much better place.
Great. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.